Is Anubha Bhonsle. You're watching Newsworthy, and I have about 5 to 7 newsworthy stories that are lined up for you. These are stories that are worthy of your time, your attention, and your mental health. Now, every week, we're hoping to come to you 2 to 3 times a week via this live stream. Along with that, you'll continue to get our explainers. That's all the offering we have on Newsworthy, at least for the next month or so. We'll continue to await your feedback as to how we are doing. Enough of that. Let's get started with today's Newsworthy stories. Now, my top lead on Newsworthy, as you can see, is not Navjot Sidhu. I've taken that editorial call and pushed the Punjab Congress drama to number 2. Our top story is India's improved COVID 19 numbers. After more than 200 days, we are reporting less than 20,000 daily new COVID 19 cases. Our active cases have fallen below 3 lakh for the first time. That's about in 6 months or so. 20 states at this point in time, including union territories, are now reporting fewer than 100 new cases a day. And watch out for this one, 10 of them have been finding fewer than 10 cases daily. Kerala, that's been a state of a lot of concern, is also showing remarkable improvement. Over the last 2 weeks, active cases in that state have fallen from over 2 lakh to about 1.63 lakh. What's more concerning at this point in time is the situation in Mizoram. Over the past 20 days, the state that has barely 12 lakh people or so has recorded close to 24,000 cases. That would mean about 30% of the state's entire caseload of 88,000 since the beginning of the pandemic has, in a sense, come in the last 3 weeks alone. Apart from Mizoram, one could say that the COVID 19 situation is improving in India, but the caveats remain from scientists, from experts, from doctors, from the medical community. Everyone is continuing to reiterate that we have to wait for more people to get vaccinated to let our guards down completely. We are on the subject of COVID 19, so just 2 quick updates. There are at least 3 promising antiviral pills for COVID 19 that are being currently tested in US clinical trials. The results for these are expected as late fall or winter. Now, remember, these are antiviral pills and they actually work by interfering with the virus's ability to replicate in human cells. You would be aware of that one antiviral drug that has often come in our discourse, remdesivir, that has been approved to treat COVID 19. But remember, it is given intravenously to patients who are ill enough, in a sense, to be hospitalized and is really not meant for early and widespread use. By contrast, the 3 antivirals that I spoke about just a second ago that are under study, that are under clinical trials, can be packaged as pills for daily home use after someone tests positive. In fact, these pills, if found effective, are obviously not going to be a substitute for COVID 19 vaccines. They're going to be another tool in our armor to fight this pandemic. Just one quick set of numbers, and they're rather a despairing set of numbers that have come via Lancet that show around 1.1 million children have lost their primary caregiver to COVID 19 between March of 2020 and April of 2021. The worst hit has been Peru, where more than 10 children per thousand have lost their caregiver. In India, that number stands at over 75,000 children that have lost one or both their parents between April and July of 2020 alone. Now to that top political story that I'm sure is the headlines everywhere. This is a story that hasn't stopped churning, in a sense, Punjab Congress and its unending crisis. The Punjab Congress chief, Navjot Sidhu, quit his post today quite suddenly. He announced the same on Twitter. In his resignation letter, which we'll put on the screen right away, it's rather oddly worded. He spoke of refusing to compromise on Punjab's future. If you can look closely, I'd urge you to look at the first line. The letter obviously addressed to Sonia Gandhi, whom he hasn't met so far. Now, there are many theories as to why Navjot Singh Sidhu quit, not being named as the chief minister, number one, unhappy with the choice of people in the new cabinet, number two. Now, depending on who you speak to, there is a lot of choice as far as what Navjot Singh Sidhu should be considered as: unstable, opportunistic, or taking the high moral ground here. Now, remember, Sidhu's term, in a sense, has remained a short one. He was appointed the Punjab Congress chief only in July after months of wrangling, months of feud with the former chief minister Amrinder Singh, who eventually resigned from his post. In fact, Amrinder Singh is in the capital at this point in time. There has been news that he's expected to meet Home Minister Amit Shah, though that is coming only via sources to political reporters. How did he react to that particular resignation letter of Navjot Singh Sidhu? Well, after Navjot Singh Sidhu stepped down, Amrinder Singh actually spared no time taking to Twitter to quite literally saying, "I told you so." Net net, not a stretch to say that the Punjab Congress is in disarray just months before that state goes to the polls. The Aam Aadmi Party making or trying to make its inroads there very, very strongly. If you're someone who likes the political drama and is keen to understand what's happening in Punjab, leave us a comment. We'll try and do a full political explainer to what's happening in Punjab and what to expect in the Punjab elections that are coming up in the next few months. Let's turn our attention to the third big focus here on Newsworthy. It is the Delhi High Court that is continuing to hear cases related to the Delhi riots that took place in Northeast Delhi in February of last year, 2020, and killed at least 53 people. The Delhi High Court has taken a very strong stand today. I'm quoting from the order and obviously just the operative portions of the particular case that the Delhi High Court was hearing. They've called the riots a conspiracy that were planned and executed, saying that the riots did not take place in the spur of the moment. They were pre-planned in a sense. There was, the court says, a systematic disconnection and destruction of the CCTV cameras that actually confirms this aspect, as does the fact that there were innumerable rioters who ruthlessly descended with sticks, dandas, bats upon a hopelessly outnumbered cohort of police officials. Needless to say, those are not my words. We are quoting the Delhi High Court. The court was actually making this observation because it was passing an order in connection with the murder of Head Constable Ratan Lal, as well as causing injuries to a DCP. During the riots, it was listening to the bail plea of one Muhammad Ibrahim, who is an accused in the case. Now, just a quick bit of context. The High Court's remarks actually come at a time when investigation and trial of several cases related to the Delhi riots have been progressing and are before the court. The court has often commented on the snail's pace. The law courts have frequently called out the police for quote unquote shoddy probes. And really, in an effort perhaps to remedy some of this, the Delhi police recently constituted a special investigating cell to monitor the riot probes. This particular cell is going to file supplementary charge sheets in the court. They're going to follow up on forensic lab results, and they're going to ensure that the special public prosecutors, witnesses, and other officials like investigating officers are actually present during court hearings. Now, remember, it's 20 months on since the Delhi riots, in a sense. Is this going to really expedite things? We'll keep you posted on this story. The fourth story here on Newsworthy, and we are picking up from a significant story that came out in the Economic Times, just in case you missed it. And this is the Chinese back in Indian territory. The Economic Times reported today that 100 Chinese soldiers, as well as 55 PLA horses, crossed the border at Barahoti in Uttarakhand. This incident happened last month. Important to remember, the incident happened last month. The Economic Times is reporting on it today. They transgressed over 5 kilometers into Indian territory, are believed to have damaged infrastructure, including a bridge. What's also crucial as we try and unpack this story is that there was no confrontation between the armies since the Chinese retreated. And this is before the ITBP and the Indian Army could reach the area from their camps in Joshimat, but there was no confrontation, no face off of any kind. Intelligence agencies have also flagged Chinese activity at the airbase near Barahoti. That's also according to the Economic Times report. Remember, there has been no official comment to this particular story till about an hour or so ago when I checked up with defense officials. I want to point out an additional reason why this continues to be newsworthy. It's an alarm bell of sorts for everyone who's a stakeholder in this story, the central government, the armed forces that till now have been focusing on the disengagement with the Chinese in Ladakh. Remember, it's been 17 months since the Galwan clash. Both countries have agreed to disengage. That disengagement is happening rather slowly, but China is continuing to add to its infrastructure, such as airstrips, helipads, and some of the forward areas. Now, this latest transgression, if I can call it, is extremely significant, extra significant because of the place where it occurred. Barahoti was the first area which saw transborder intrusions by the Chinese in 1954, which later expanded to other areas, and of course, as we know, culminated in the 1962 war. We'll continue to track this story, especially if there is an official reaction to the developments that have been reported by the Economic Times. Our last stack really is an international update, and there's enough happening in our neighborhood and across the world. Today, some of you may know, is International Safe Abortion Day, and there is news that China is cracking down on abortions for non medical reasons. Now, I'm not quite sure what exactly that means. In fact, no one knows what exactly that means, but that authorities in the past have actually made false claims like abortions to end unwanted pregnancies can harm women's bodies, they can risk causing infertility, etc. But human rights activists are pointing towards the fact that this is perhaps China's way to counter the effects of its now scrapped one child policy. They're faced with a rapidly aging population. They now want more babies who will grow up, add to the workforce, support the economy in a sense. Next, an international update that I absolutely want to flag has a large bearing for India, for the entire region, for the entire AFPAC region, and is of strategic value as well. A US Congressional report on terrorism, which says some things that's perhaps an open secret of sorts, that Pakistan is home to at least 12 groups that are designated as foreign terror organizations, including five of them that are India centric or have an India link, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. The Hizbul Mujahideen, that also continues to operate from Pakistan, also finds a mention there, as does Al Qaeda, that, contrary to what the US would have everyone believe, is still very much active in 15 districts of Afghanistan, and it maintains quote unquote supportive ties with groups inside Afghanistan, according to this US Congressional report. Now, this particular report really has come at a time when you may have heard Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech at the UN General Assembly. He, in a sense, blamed the world for ostracizing and isolating their country since the fall of Afghanistan. It is important to remember that terror attacks in Pakistan have also increased manifold ever since the Taliban took over. There is now data that has been compiled by the South Asia Terrorism Portal that says that Pakistan saw at least 35 terror attacks that killed 52 civilians in August alone. It's the highest since February of 2017. And most of these attacks have been attributed to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP as it's often referred to. It's an offshoot terror outfit of the Taliban. India is also seeing the consequences. It has seen a definite uptick in infiltration across the line of control. In the last 7 days, Indian security forces have killed at least 7 terrorists in counterinsurgency operations. In fact, just today there was a news of a 19-year-old LET operative who was apprehended along the line of control. We've talked so much about Afghanistan, so let's do a quick update from Afghanistan, where Taliban has settled into its old ways, really, in every way possible. You may have heard of girls' schools that continue to remain shut, even as boys have resumed education. You would have seen pictures from universities where a curtain of sorts divides men and burqa clad women, the picture on your screen there. And of course, the Ministry of Women's Affairs that has been replaced with what's called the Ministry of Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. If you haven't heard it, I'll repeat it. The Ministry of Women's Affairs has been replaced with the Ministry of Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. This is the department that actually executes the Taliban's very regressive system of justice, including public executions and amputations. This week, for instance, there have been reports of four men who were executed, some of their bodies reportedly seen hanging in public view. This happened in the city of Herat. The Taliban additionally have also banned hairdressers from trimming or shaving beards. They're calling it a breach of the Islamic law. Barber shops are now not allowed to play music. Apart from all of this, the economic freeze on Afghanistan continues. The World Bank has halted funding for new projects. The International Monetary Fund has suspended payments to Afghanistan. The US president has frozen assets of Afghanistan's central bank, which are held in the US. And as a result of all of this economic freeze, so to speak, the country is obviously facing an acute cash crunch. Their currency is in free fall. The Taliban has, at this point in time, limited bank withdrawals that are leading to food prices of really basic items skyrocketing. Flour costs have gone up by 30%. Vegetables and cereals have undergone a 50% rise. In a sense, no money is really available for public finance and administrative operations. That means really there is no prospect for salaries when it comes to government workers. As much as 97% of the population is at a risk of sinking below the poverty line. That's according to the United Nations. I'll just repeat that figure. It's staggering, it's heartbreaking. As much as 97% of the population in Afghanistan is at the risk of sinking below the poverty line. These are the United Nations estimates. I'll stop here. This is all we could pack in here on this live stream of Newsworthy. Now, just a quick call out to anyone and everyone who's watching or will possibly look at this live stream later. We're going to try and do this 2 to 3 times a week. We're going to continue to do our in-depth expanded explainers 1 to 2 times a week. We want to expand on the geographic areas we cover as well as the stories that we cover as we go along. But we need a little bit of your help. We need a little bit of your feedback as to what really interests you. If you've been watching, if this has been worthy of your time, do consider subscribing to this channel. You know the drill. You simply have to click the bell icon so that you get a notification whenever we have a good, solid video or whenever we are doing a live. From all of us here at Newsworthy, we are a small, tiny team, but we work very hard. Thank you for watching us. I also do, as I end this particular telecast, want to flag a very different Newsworthy offering that we give on Instagram. Our handle there is Newsworthy with AB. It's also there on your screens. A lot of this is currently being led with my name, but we'll try and change that and we'll try and give you a Newsworthy and Liveworthy offering as best as we can. If you've been watching, thank you for your time and we'll